goes through their mind, but like if Souza was there and I came through the curtain and I saw Souza and he watched my match, and if he says,
would he pull you aside?
yes, he would. And he'd be like, good match. And I would say, thank you. You know what I mean? And we would do the same thing with them. And we'd give them a big hug, say, yeah, great job. We're not going to take the credit because
now in that case,
knows,
when you pull them aside, you obviously give them praise for what they did, but do you also point out the points that they possibly could have corrected on for next time?
Yeah.
I mean, do all the younger guys take that as a learning experience? Because I'm like, some guys are probably like, man, he's picking on me, that sort of thing. But it's
you have to, like I said, you got to check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
After 25 years, I'm still looking for advice. If I come back, how did it look? How did it look? Oh, you could have done this better. Okay, no problem. That's great. You know what I mean? But the younger guys, yeah, they'll take it pretty well.
I want to get into a hot topic, obviously, in like 2 minutes here. But one thing I did want to get into, and a lot of the stuff here tonight might seem like inside discussion, or whatever the case may be, but the viewers of the show here for 10, 11 years have watched us, and there's certain times that we've crossed the line because I say this, if the fans at home and the viewers at home don't buy the tickets, you're not working, I'm not filming, that sort of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, they're not stupid. They're smart individuals. They're smart people. So it's just the whole point of I like to get them involved some ways on how it's all involved and without getting too in-depth. But now, one last thing before we get into your whole Vince McMahon, WWE. I want to get into this.
Okay.
Now, a lot of the rookies come through the curtain. A lot of the rookies come through the, the company. They want to lace up their boots, get in the ring. Anybody thinks lace up a boots, put on a pair of tights, you can wrestle. Okay. Now, I've heard this a lot, and I believe I have over the past 15 years or so. I'm still learning as we go, but I've come across a few individuals over the years past that they shrug their shoulders when they say, "Hey, you've got to pay your dues." Now, when a new guy comes through that door, and the veterans say, "Hey, buddy, you got to pay your dues like everybody else," what exactly is paying the dues mean?
They have to do what we did. Okay.
Which is what?
Well, I'm not going to say what I did because when I started, I was always on top.
No, what I'm saying is, what is the normal
to make it to the top? You have to work your butt off.
You got to prove yourself.
You have to prove yourself. Yeah. One case one instant. I'll go with Stryker. Okay.
Mike Stryker.
Mike Stryker.
Southern Bad Boy.
Yeah. He first started. He did everything that was asked of him. Okay. We had a long going feud. We've had crazy matches. You know what I mean? There was a match where at the end of the match, I beat him, and I went to inflict more punishment, and they were pumping smoke out of the curtain, and I go to drop an elbow on him. He lifts his arms, and I break my ribs. Okay. Not his fault. He was worried. And the week after, we were doing an away show, and Souza told him, "Hey, he's looking for you. He's not very happy with you." The poor kid nearly almost ran out of the building. That's how scared he was. But you know what? Out of all the times we did matches. Then we had my match, my specialty match was the casket thing. And the night that I walked up to him and I told him, I said, "Look, you paid your dues. You're going over tonight." The blank look on his face was priceless. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Are you serious?" Yeah. And I said, "I wouldn't tell you this if I didn't think you're ready." And to put that kid over, it's no big deal for me. I've been on top. You know what I mean?
He earned his spot, is what you're saying.
He earned it, okay? All of these guys have to earn it. Speaking of JT Dunn and all that stuff, I've worked with him a couple times.
Because I mentioned JT because eventually the next 4, 6, 8 weeks, I want to have JT on. And I did want to bring back the show and actually listen to him. I'm going to have him listen to what you're actually saying to him and vice versa. And obviously I'm going to bring up yourself to him. So that's the reason for bringing this on.
The kid's a good kid, okay? He listens. When I worked with him, he listened well. We did a great job. His advisor, manager, or whatever, another good kid. They do it the right way. They listen to what we have to say. And if it ever comes to the point where I would put him over, I would put him over in a heartbeat. Because I think the kid does the things the right way. He doesn't question anything. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy.
He'll be the first to admit, though, in the past he did some stupid things.
Yeah,
But
we all have.
And he said he come up to me at the last show. I talked to him for a bit. He says, "You know something, Shooter?" He goes, "I did some stupid things in the past. I did some stuff that wasn't really mature, and but I learned. I matured a lot. I learned, and like you said, I kept my mouth shut, my ears open, and I'm learning. Yep. Case in point, full circle. Come full circle now. Look at him now.
Yep.
It shows you how bad that he wants it.
Yep.
You know. So
Good
we're looking forward to having him on. And Pete, can we cue up that 2/23/95? Okay.
Oh boy.
I will say it is February 23rd, 1995, New England Wrestling at the PAL Hall. We're going to be looking at our guest, who now is known as Redemption, but back then he was known as the Blade Runner. Okay, being accompanied to the ring by Sandy Starr. We'll leave it at that. You don't know who your opponent is just yet.
Okay.
But, you know, like I said, we had you back. And a few other things to get into. We're going to get into the lineup for this Friday again, and a little bit more on the 26th. But let's get into the whole. I didn't know this until the last time we spoke with you, because unless it's public knowledge, I really didn't know it. You had a run-in of sorts as far as being able to work with the WWE years back, Poughkeepsie, Niagara Falls. Now, would you mind? Because the fans love these type of stories and how they, quote, get a break and stuff like that. So would you mind explaining to us what exactly went down there?
Back in 1991, I was a freshman in college. I just came off an injury, and I said, I got to do something before, something really bad happens. So I started at UMass Dartmouth. Savannah Sousa gave me a call one night in November, and he said, you're booked for a show in Utica, New York. I said, who's it for? He said, it's for Vince. And I'm like, shut up. I'm not going to Vince. He's like, Derek, you're really going to Vince? I'm like, no, I'm not. So this played off for a couple of days because he was the biggest prankster of them all. So finally, the day arrived, and he goes, you're going, let's go. So I packed my suitcase, packed my gear. I'm like, all right, whatever, just, thinking he's still ribbing me.
Did it set in that point?
Nope.
Not yet.
Until I got to the place where we were going to go to meet the van. He's like, you're going to meet a van? I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I get there, and sure enough, there's a van there. Now, Scott Taylor's in the van, a couple other guys are in the van, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is really serious. So we ended up going to Utica in a snowstorm. We get to Utica, and I don't wrestle because they cut the show short because it was a blizzard. Mm-hmm. But during that time, Scott Taylor was sitting next to me, and he took off, as usual. He left me all the time. And all of a sudden, I see, like, Korea and Vince and all them poking their heads out and looking down the hallway where I was sitting. So I didn't realize anything of it. And Taylor came back, and he was all excited, and he says, hey, they were just talking about doing a voodoo gimmick. And they said, what about the big black kid over there? And they're like, oh, maybe, you never know. So come to find out, about a year later, the Papa Shango thing came out. That was going to be the voodoo gimmick that they were talking about. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. But, me, I'm humble. It doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of people say, well, you've been to the WWE? And I'm like, yeah, I've been there. I didn't wrestle. Who'd you wrestle? I didn't wrestle anybody.
But you got compensated greatly for it.
Oh, yeah. But, the biggest thing in my career was walking through the curtain. There was nobody in the arena, okay? Nobody there. I walked through the curtain. I look up, and back in the day, it was WWF. I looked at that sign. And I sat there, and tears came down my face, and I said, I made it to the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. And I walked back through that curtain, and yeah, I didn't work. But you know what? My explanation that I got from Tony Gurria was, you're a big kid. We don't want to put you on TV and job you out just in case something happens. And we have to call you back for something.
So they're saving you just in case.
Yep. And if Tony Gurria was right here right now, I would thank him for that. Mm-hmm. And that was like the biggest thing in my career. I've been there. That was the first time.
First time.
And then the other time was in Syracuse and Niagara Falls. And you sat there, and I got to meet all the guys. I seen what goes on in the back, and it was like just like what we do here in Indies. I thought it was going to be all craziness, and the guys were going to be all swelled up, but they were great.
I found the Ultimate Warrior discussion kind of fun. If you want to get into that.
That was back when they were doing the Papa Shango thing. When I don't know if any of the viewers remember when they possessed the Ultimate Warrior, and they possessed Mean Gene and everybody. And they had like the ooze. You remember the ooze?
Yeah, the purple or green.
No, it was brown. It was chocolate syrup and water. But I probably shouldn't say that. But anyway, they did that night. They did it that night, and it was like the coolest thing just to see Mr. McMahon walking around saying, that doesn't look right. Doesn't look right. Doesn't look right. Let's get it right. Okay, so. And then they did the thing where he was throwing up. The Ultimate Warrior was throwing up.
Was this legit?
No.
No.
I was downstairs when that happened. I was like behind the camera, and it was the worst smell you could ever smell. And they took about 8 takes before he told Vince, he says, make me do this again, I'm really gonna throw up. And he's like, well, that's what I want. And then everybody starts laughing, and I was like, it was cool. And then another big thing was when you leave, Vince came up to you and said, thank you very much. You shook your hand, and, thank you for coming. And I said, thank you for letting me come.
That's appreciation.
So, yeah.
Now, I mean, I know we got about 20 minutes left, and we're definitely going to get in that clip, most of it anyway. Now, what would a show be tonight if we didn't hear? I mean, you've had to be involved in a rib or two during the years. I mean, it's going to be a rib you can share. I'm not talking about Redemption running down with a thong or anything down the hallway. I'm just talking something family friendly that we can. Something that we can. Have you get ribbed? Hotels ribbed.
Yes. The second time we went to the WWF, we stayed in a little town called Tully, New York.
Never heard of it. Actually.
I never heard of it either until we ran into it. We actually left the day before the show, and so we could get there, And we got lost on Long Island, going to pick up a guy named Sonny Blaze. So we traveled all the way down Long Island, all the way back, and
surprised you didn't get lost.
Yeah, we were lost.
Oh.
So we drive up through Tully, and we're like, all right, we're gonna stay in Tully. So we stay there, and I had a roommate, Taylor, and this guy named Shockwave, Dave, another guy named Brian, and Sonny. So about 3 in the morning, my phone rings in my hotel room, and a voice says, "Sir, you haven't paid your bill yet, so could you come, pay your bill?" I said, all right, whatever.
So the front desk is calling your cell phone at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Not a cell phone. It was
the
phone in the hotline in the room. So I get out of bed with my roommate. We jump in the van and drive around the front. And lo and behold, we get there, and the lady's like, "There's no guy here, and I don't know what you're talking about. You're already paid." So we go back to the room, and I see shadows under the door across the way. So I start kicking the door, and I hear Taylor laughing and all that stuff. So, yeah, Scott Taylor, he got me pretty good that night.
He ribbed you.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't hear the end of that one for the whole rest of the trip.
Now you've ran into him since then. Has he? I mean, do those things usually come up? Like I remember the day.
No. We just talk about how he's doing and how's the family. My grandmother used to love that kid, and when he used to drive down from Maine and he didn't want to go back, he would sleep on my couch.
Yeah.
And my grandmother absolutely loved that boy.
That's what friends are about,
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that.
So it's a lot of people say, "Oh, Scott Taylor?" Slept on my couch plenty of times.